November 19, 2024, Little Rock City Board of Directors meeting. I'd like to welcome those that are in attendance as well as those watching at home or streaming online. Madam Clerk, if you would, please call the roll.
Director Miller. Director Richardson. Director Peck. Director Hines. Director Lewis. Director Wyrick. Director Compuris. Director Phillips.
Present.
Director Adcock. Vice Mayor Webb. Mayor Scott.
Here. Now I'll recognize Mr. Carpenter to give the invocation.
Please join me. The board has come together tonight to deal with issues that come before them as the legislative body of the city. Many of us are here because we are citizens of the city, and others are here because they are interested in the things that the city does. But it needs to be understood that while we care about the city, we don't control the city. We help. If someone criticizes Little Rock because waste is not picked up, or because streets are not repaired, or because emergency services do not get to a place as quickly as they thought they should, it's not a criticism of the city, it's a criticism of us who are part of the city, the leaders, to make sure that we have the people in place to do these things, and the citizens who will let the leaders know where and when sometimes the standard we meet has not been reached. By the same token, when a police officer saves somebody's life, when a firefighter pulls someone from a fire, when the garbage collection takes care of overly stuffed garbage cans after a Thanksgiving weekend or a Christmas weekend, it's not a praise to the city, it's a praise to all of us, because the city does not exist without us. And let us approach the issues before us tonight in that light. Amen.
May you please stand for a pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now have the Southwest High School Band. Right. All right. Those here inside the boardroom, this is a representation of the seniors and section leaders of the Southwest Little Rock High School Band. The remaining members of the band, they are out in the City Hall Rotunda. Let's give them all a round of applause. And so normally I would read the proclamation from the podium, but I'll do it from here just in the essence of the capacity of the room. Whereas the Southwest Little Rock High School Band, known as the Supersonic Storm of Southwest, has demonstrated exemplary skill, dedication, and passion in the field of music, earning a first place title in Division I for overall band, as well as first place in auxiliary at the prestigious Delta Classic Battle of the Bands competition. And whereas under the exceptional leadership of band director Jose Holloway, I had it correct, I apologize. Jose Holloway, the Supersonic Storm of the Southwest has thrived with students committing countless hours of practice to perfect their performances, which have captivated audiences and set a high standard for excellence in the marching band. And whereas, through their commitment to both academics and the arts, the Supersonic Storm of Southwest has achieved an impressive 3.27 GPA. Let's give them a round of applause for that. With a significant portion of students making the honor roll, highlighting their discipline, resilience, and the educational value of music in shaping successful futures. And whereas the Supersonic Storm of Southwest earned its first superior rating at the Arkansas Region 1 Marching Assessment, further establishing its status as a top performing band in the region and reinforcing the power of dedication and teamwork. And whereas the outstanding accomplishments of the Supersonic Storm of Southwest serve as a source of pride and inspiration for the city of Little Rock, reminding us of the tremendous impact music has on young lives and the community as a whole. Now, therefore, I, Frank Scott Jr., Mayor of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, do hereby proclaim October 29th, 2024 as Supersonic Storm of Southwest Day. Really proud of y'all. Y'all doing a phenomenal job here in the city, and we're grateful for each one of y'all, the hard work you guys are doing. Appreciate it.
Come on, Principal.
Come on, you the principal.
Yeah, Mayor, is the mayor, where the mayor? Can I take a point of personal privilege? I hadn't got the opportunity to do this. I know when we celebrate Hall and Central, each director says, hey, this is the best school in the city. Well, it's not McClellan, but it's close. It's Southwest High School. So I want to shout out my neighborhood and the second iteration of McClellan Southwest High School for the work that they're doing. So I finally get to say Southwest High School is the best high school in the city of Little Rock. So I'm proud to do that. How about that?
All right, we'll now have Mrs. Stephanie Street.
Virtually. As many of you know, this week marks the 20 years since President and Secretary Clinton welcomed the world to a very rainy day to open the Clinton Presidential Center, along with 3 former presidents, hundreds of dignitaries, world leaders, and 30,000 other guests right here in Little Rock, Arkansas. On behalf of President Clinton, Secretary Clinton, and everyone at the Clinton Foundation, I want to express my deepest gratitude to the Little Rock Board of Directors. Because of your support and deep partnership, we've been able to uphold President Clinton's vision for the Clinton Center, which is articulated in this memorable quote that I'd like to share from this day. The thing I want most is for people, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, liberals or conservatives, to see that public service is noble and important, that the choices and decisions that leaders make affect the lives of millions of Americans and people all across the world. I want young people to see not only what I did with my life, but to see what they could do with their lives. Because this is mostly the story of what we, the people, can do when we work together. President Bill Clinton. Over the last 2 decades, we have been honored to bring millions of people to our community, host thousands of programs, and curate hundreds of lectures and exhibits. And I'd like to take this opportunity especially to thank Directors Dean Compuris, Joan Adcock, and B.J. Wyrick, who have served on the Little Rock City Board since we began planning the process for the Clinton Center all the way back in 1998, and who continue to support the Clinton Center in a number of ways. As many of you know, we have an exciting 20th anniversary celebration weekend coming up in just a few weeks. And I'd like to personally invite you, Mr. Mayor, and the entire city board to join me for a very special Compuris distinguished lecture on December 7th, featuring President Clinton, Secretary Clinton, and a few surprise guests. Thank you so much for the 20+ years of collaboration past, and I look forward to the next 20 years of working with you together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is Miss Olivia Chambers here? Oh, gotcha. Thank you. We'll now have the Sister Cities Commission update. And thank you again, Ms. Street. I guess so.
Good evening, Mayor Scott, Vice Mayor Webb, and the Board of Directors, everyone here tonight and also virtually. Tonight, I have with me, I'm Margie Raimondo, the Chair of the Little Rock Sister Cities Commission, and I have with us tonight Edward Haddock, Erica Fields, Summer Carey, and Ben Walters. Thank you for this opportunity to share the 2024 year in review. Our commission aims to collaborate with international cities to promote educational exchanges, build economic opportunities, and foster mutual respect and empathy among cultures. Little Rock Sister City collaborates with 5 sister cities, 2 friendship cities, and we're exploring 2 other cities in our new city outreach. The year 2024 was successful. With the support of our international friends, we completed a youth exchange. We developed initiatives with universities to do college exchange and faculty exchanges. We assisted with a visit from the Little Rock Sister City that went to Hanam City looking at economic development opportunities. And we also participated in lots of different kinds of cultural celebrations and traditions. Join me on a quick journey with our sister cities so you can see what we accomplished this year. In March, the Little Rock Mayor's Youth Council and our commission hosted the Newcastle Youth Exchange, and they learned about our city by hosting and going to our historic Little Rock school, our Central High, and other landmarks. They also volunteered at our house. They went there and they cooked a meal for the residents as well as for the staff that was there, and they planted flowers in the very beginning part of the entrance. In April, we celebrated Sicilian Americans who helped American soldiers during World War II at a cultural ceremony in Enna, Sicily. Our friends from Enna actually came here to Little Rock in June so that we could sign the friendship ceremony. We also did, during that time, we had a very nice historical opportunity to be able to have a signing with the University of Arkansas Department of Agriculture. We signed an MOU with a university in Sicily so we can develop student exchanges, faculty exchanges, and research exchange between Little Rock and also Enna. During that visit, of course, we took them to some of our other landmarks. We went to the Capitol. We also ended our trip with being able to go to the Rotary, and we had lunch as well as we did a flag exchange. Also in June, we had the opportunity to celebrate a very important cultural event in, we went to Kaohsiung and we celebrated the Kaohsiung Love River Dragon Boat Festival. And at that festival, you can see there was a lot of fun that was happening during the race, but also in dancing and many other things. So we learned a lot about that. But during that event, we also had meetings, a planning meeting, so we could look at future activities such as creating business forums in both cities, focusing on technology, tourism, and also manufacturing. In July, we had a visit with the Limbey Sister Cities delegation. We're exploring potential opportunities between Limbey and Little Rock. We're looking at some educational opportunities, maybe some exchanges, and also possible economic development. In July, we had a visit from the Hanam City delegation. The mayor came, and we also did many things. We went, of course, we had lots of time to go visit again Central High. We went there so that they could see that. We met with the Clinton School of Public Service, as well as we had lots of great food locally. In July, we also went, or I'm sorry, in August, our youth exchange, the Little Rock youth, went to Newcastle and continued the exchange, the student exchange. So we had a delegation that went with the Mayor's Youth Council, and during that time, there were a lot of activities, but one of the activities I want to highlight is the one that's centered around the flag, and that flag was very special because it was designed between the two cities, and it has the skyline of both Little Rock and also Newcastle, and they exchanged it as because soccer is a really big thing, so it's a soccer flag. And so there's now a soccer club, and they're celebrating that cultural experience and that very important event in Newcastle. In August, we also, the commission, all of us, we attended an event. It's an Arkansas State Sister City event where all the other sister cities came together. It was a day of learning, sharing with each other, and also networking. And then in October, we went back to Enna, and we had the University of Arkansas Department of Ag traveled with us to go and meet and actually formalize the relationship that we're having with Corey University, so that as of 2025, students, faculty can actually do an exchange between anybody here in Little Rock and also Enna. They can come here. So that's been formalized now. While we were there, we had the opportunity to meet with the Department of Agriculture for Sicily, and we actually signed an agreement to do joint agricultural research. We have a good thing that's happening is that we are starting with a joint research project that is actually going to happen starting this month, and in fact, as we speak, the ancient grains are being flown here so that they can be planted in Arkansas. And the whole project is around trying to combat food insecurity. So developing ancient grain Sicilian wheat that can be developed into breads and also into pasta to give to areas that need food. In October, we also had the opportunity to go to the Museum of the Immigration in Enna, where you can see that the Arkansas flag is flying high next to the American flag. And so that was really great to be able to see that up in that museum. And finally, we concluded with our meeting that we had so that we could again foster an educational exchange between two countries. So UMS and Kaohsiung, Taiwan, we're looking at programs to help educate nurses and pharmacies between our two cities. So it was a busy 2024, but we're not sitting around in 2025. We have a lot on our table. So you can see we have plans for more student exchanges. We're going to be hosting people, exploring other possible cities that we may have a relationship with. And we're also going to be continuing on to build the collaboration culturally, education, as well as looking at business opportunities for us. So I want to thank you for this opportunity to give you a highlight of what we did. And I'm happy to answer any questions, or my commission here is welcome here to answer. Anybody have questions?
First and foremost, we just want to share our appreciation to each of you for the hard work over the past year, the travel, but also the hosting that goes a long way. It takes a lot of time and energy and planning to host individuals from abroad here in the city. And so we want you to know on behalf of the city how much we appreciate your service on the Sister Cities Commission. We're excited about the Sister Cities for the first time ever going to Sub-Saharan Africa and doing that. We're grateful for that. And I know that's something we've been planning for quite some time. And so just wanted to share that appreciation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give everybody a round of applause. All right. Director Lewis, I know you have to read a statement for the bond allocation, BOND.
Represents the city in this bond issue. I work for First Security Bank, which is commercially related to Cruz and Associates. However, pursuant to Little Rock Code 2-335, I have received a verbal opinion from the city attorney that this does not constitute a prohibited interest pursuant to the Little Rock Code of Ethics. While I am required to note the relationship on record, I am not required to recuse. Therefore, I will participate in the discussion and vote, including procedural votes on item number 22, which was the approval of the limited obligation capital improvement bonds, which are approved at the electric service.
Thank you. For those who may not understood, she had to read that statement that there is no conflict of interest as we make a vote on the capital improvement bonds. First Security Bank owns a fixed income investment bank by the name of Cruz and Associates. Clearly, Director Lewis works for First Security Bank, and we had to state that per our legal counsel, and so that's the reason why she read that. That's something I believe is later on down.
Item 22.
That's item 22 is the reason why she read that, for item 22.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can we turn the volume up, if possible?
We're working on that. Thank you.
Mayor, the clerk should have a copy of this statement for purposes of the minutes of the meeting.
All right. Thank you so much. And we are working on the volume? All right. That being stated, we'll now go to, we have two modifications, I believe. One is to add M1 to the group items and withdraw items 8 and 9. Is there a motion? There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. We've now added M1 to the group items and withdrew items 8 and 9. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the consent agenda.
And Mayor, there's also the motion at the very top regarding the stormwater drainage.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
We need from.
There's also a motion to add stormwater drainage. There's a motion and second.
To seek the extension.
To seek the extension.
Environmental Quality and Submission of Stormwater Drainage Manual in accordance with the city's MS4 program.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the consent agenda.
A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Axon Enterprise Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $864,500 plus applicable taxes and fees for the Fusus Real-Time Crime Center operations platform and for other purposes. A resolution to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Resolution Number 16,151, November 7th, 2023, to authorize the city manager to enter into a one-year contract extension with Canvas Community in an amount not to exceed $183,894.04 for the Bridge to Work program and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with R. Valdez Construction Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $369,106.12 for the Kavanaugh Boulevard Drainage Improvement Project and for other purposes. Funding from the limited tax general obligation capital improvement bonds. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Nolan Construction Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $91,470 for a right turn lane on Chenal Parkway at Loyola Drive and for other purposes. Funding from the limited tax general obligation capital improvement bonds. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with CHF Contractors Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $599,400 for the Woodson Road reconstruction project and for other purposes. Funding from the limited tax general obligation capital improvement bonds. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Larry Harris, doing business as Harris Construction Management, in an amount not to exceed $143,904 for the 24th and 25th Street sidewalks and for other purposes. A resolution to amend Resolution 16,253, March 19th, 2023, to authorize the city manager to modify the contract with Toter LLC to increase the number of garbage cart containers for solid waste customers located within the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, for a revised total contract amount not to exceed $329,420 plus applicable taxes and fees and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with North American Fire Equipment Company Incorporated for a purchase of firefighting protective coats and pants in an amount not to exceed $50,671.39 plus applicable taxes and fees for the Little Rock Fire Department and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to approve change orders to make the final payment for construction services with Doing Construction Company Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $216,966.59 for the intake addition to the Little Rock Animal Village and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Q Merit Electrifications LLC in an amount not to exceed $73,840.72 plus applicable taxes and fees for the purchase and installation of ChargePoint dual port EV charging stations for the Little Rock Fleet Services Department and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Whitting Systems Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $400,000 plus applicable taxes and fees for the purchase and installation of truck washing equipment for the Little Rock Fleet Services Department and for other purposes. A resolution to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Resolution Number 15,676, May 3rd, 2022, to amend an allocation of the remaining portion of the first tranche of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas allotment of local fiscal recovery funds through the American Rescue Plan Act and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Crum & Foster in an amount not to exceed $121,602 plus applicable taxes and fees to provide cyber liability insurance for a one-year term and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to extend a contract with MyDat Services Incorporated, doing business as Block by Block, in an amount not to exceed $500,000 for the Downtown Ambassador Program and for other purposes. That concludes the consent agenda.
Before we take up a vote, we have a number of cards for item number 1, and we want to make certain that everyone is heard. Ms. Norma Huffman.
Okay, I know you guys have not ever seen me in my wheelchair. I've had a bad day. But I do want to talk about this because I'm trying to figure out where these cameras are supposed to be in Little Rock, if they're gonna be in Southwest Little Rock to help the crime, if there's going to be some kind of foot police officer traffic in these neighborhoods, or what? Because I see no reason why these cameras need to be put into effect, or even this whole situation when it was initially did not pass with the sales tax. So I'm just trying to figure out what's going on.
Thank you so much. Mr. William Gerard.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Board. My name's William Gerard. As Ms. Huffman said, we need more foot patrol police officers on the streets. We don't need this tax to burden the citizens and raise the groceries and everything up. We need more public services.
Yes, sir, Mr. Gerard. Mr. Blake Tierney.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Vice Mayor and City Board. As you all know, my name is Blake Tierney. I live in Ward 1. I am here to speak against item number 1. I will start with the reasons why I am speaking against this, and then I will give my recommendations for the actions to take. My reasons for being against this are based on data, privacy, rejections in other cities, as well as the need for guardrails and community control, and then more effective investments in safety, not surveillance, are available. I will not speak as much to the racial bias that exists in surveillance and policing. That will be spoken to much more clearly by other people that I know are going to speak, and that I know that other people that are on the city board are familiar with. But what I am going to speak on are the mixed results that we have in data for real-time crime centers. It is not clear whether or not real-time crime centers across the country are effective at reducing clearance rates, reducing response times, or reducing crimes of different types, different varieties. What we do have are often more anecdotal or correlational studies that show that there is maybe some feel-good stories about what happens with real-time crime centers. These are real experiences that do happen, and we need to respect those. But at the same time, we cannot just rely on anecdotes, case studies, and correlations in order to make data-informed decisions as a city, especially when we have fiscal responsibility to be fiscally responsible with our city funds, with our taxpayer dollars. In the time that I've been watching city board meetings, I've often not seen Chief Helton, who I've formed a good relationship with, up here answering questions about data from the LRPD. It would be really important for us to see what is being done. How are the decisions that have been made, the investments that have been made with LRPD, how are those actually connected and causal, or at least semi-causal, to reductions in crime? Can we see clearance rates, response times, and crime rates of different kinds mapped across at least the last decade for Little Rock, comparable cities, and the national average? We do have a lot to be proud of in reducing crime rates here in the city, but also crime has been dropping across the nation. We cannot just continue to point to those without actually saying that our investments have done what we have said they're going to do. So furthermore, I'm going to speak specifically on one aspect of the Real-Time Crime Center, things that have been integrated into the Real-Time Crime Center, such as ShotSpotter. When you break down the different components of Real-Time Crime Centers, the data becomes more mixed, more negative even. There are, ShotSpotter in particular, many cities have rejected ShotSpotter. They have been false negatives and false positives, which end up being a waste of police resources, responding when they're not needed. There have been legal issues. In general, there's also a lack of transparency around data. But in general, most cities that have decided to either not go with and touch ShotSpotter at all, or that have rejected it after having a contract have done so because the benefits do not outweigh the costs. both financially and politically. These cities include Mobile, Durham, Charlotte, many other comparable cities, many large cities. Many cities, like I said, have abandoned it or not touched it at all. I specifically talk about ShotSpotter only to mention that this is just one component of real-time crime centers. There are so many different pieces that have been added to the surveillance aspect of the city in the last decade, whether they're stationary cameras, whether those are license plate readers, the audio surveillance of ShotSpotter, or the Eyes on the Rock that we've heard a lot about, and that's the main part of Fusus and the Axon contract. But all of these, as the city is also exploring other technologies, whether it's drones or whatever it might be, what stands right now is that we don't have any policies on paper that are protecting residents. I know that there have been spoken commitments about not using facial recognition software. There have been spoken commitments about other aspects. But as we consider the world, as we consider the things that we're going to be facing in the next few years, we need to have guardrails in place, in policy, that are gonna make sure that we don't use facial recognition software. They're gonna make sure that there are safeguards on our privacy of our data, especially in the instances of data breaches. We need to make sure that protesters, people seeking reproductive care and other personal healthcare decisions, and immigrants are protected from surveillance and whatever forces might want to access those. We need to make sure that there are these guardrails before we make decisions on these things and decide to enter into a 5-year contract. Many cities across the country have instituted laws called CCOPS. This is community control over police surveillance. Generally, these policies do the following. If an agency wants to acquire or use surveillance technology, it must publish an impact statement and a proposed use policy. The public must be notified within ample time and given an opportunity to comment, first through engagement in the community, second through a reviewing board with surveillance experts, and third with this body itself. The agency cannot use or acquire this surveillance technology unless the city board grants that permission and approves the use policy. The benefits must outweigh the costs, and that the use policy will effectively protect human rights. The city board can require improvements to this use policy before it passes. And if it is approved, the agency must publish annual reports regarding their use of the technology in compliance with the approved policies. This would apply to tech already in use as well, and the approval would have, or annual approval will be required from the board. The public would also need ways of remedying if the policy was not enacted or not followed. So those are all reasons that I'm asking for changing things up. I'm not going to talk too much longer, but want to say that the cost has built up for the Real-Time Crime Center. Yes, this is $800,000, which is not a lot in the grand scheme of $330 million, but we've seen multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on cameras, on the different technologies, on staff, on the training, on software, on all sorts of different things. We saw in the city sales tax that was proposed, there was $30 million over 10 years for Real-Time Crime Center and other related aspects of the LRPD. This is a fairly expensive investment, and we need to make sure that we are seeing results from it. But we know there are other opportunities, there are other options out there for ensuring that residents are safe. We know, we've seen it from other cities. We've seen the Cahoots model in Eugene, Oregon. It costs the city of Eugene $820,000. The organization itself puts the other $1 million in a little bit, but it saves the city of Eugene an estimated $8.5 million a year. And it also saves the emergency medical aspect of the city $14 million. This is this is a program that responds to, with peers and community responders to calls that come in. We also have in Louisville the Group Violence Intervention Department that received more than $500,000 in a recent budget. And Louisville's non-fatal shootings and total shooting victims each dropped more than 25% from 2020 to 2022. These are things that have proven evidence-based backing that we can invest in. We even have on the agenda tonight, item number 2, we have Bridge to Work. We currently have $180,000 yes, $180,000 for that. But we heard last week from Reverend Paul that that could use more money so we can employ more homeless individuals to address issues in the city, to clean up aspects of the city, and then to help homeless individuals get off the streets, to be job and housing ready. These are investments that we can make with this money instead of putting ourselves into a 5-year contract that we don't know if it's actually going to have results. So, what am I asking from you? You've already read the consent agenda, but I hope that you will still hold this item separate. Whether that's moving to amend the agenda or whatever you need to do, please remove this item so that you vote on it separately from the consent agenda. Secondly, vote against it. And I know that some of you are not going to do that. I know that's a hard ask. So I'm going to give you another option. Move to postpone consideration of this item until a date that is specified where we can get CCOPS legislation and we can get a report from LRPD that shows the impact of Real-Time Crime Center and we can see the data. Please take this into consideration. Please listen to the many other folks that are going to speak on this. From personal experiences, from other aspects, please listen to them and please reject this resolution. Thank you.
Stephanie Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not that tall, Blake. Thank you, Mayor, to the board. My name is Stephanie Gray. You actually heard from me several months ago where I was here really asking the board to consider the sanctity of human life. How do we protect those that are most vulnerable in our community? And I feel like I'm back here again. I'm not going to reiterate some of the amazing points that have already been made by my colleagues here, but I want to have a particular focus when we're talking about the risks that are posed to our marginalized communities, especially our religious communities that are minority religions here in the city. Particularly, some of my academic work and advocacy work has been working with interfaith leaders across the country. How do we think about creating safer communities for those of our Muslim neighbors, our Jewish neighbors, our Hindu neighbors, and others? Technology like what is being proposed within this resolution particularly puts our Muslim neighbors most at risk, our highly visible Jewish neighbors, those in Orthodox communities, our Hindu neighbors, and anybody that can be seen as othered. Particularly looking just over the last year here in Little Rock of the over-surveillance of Palestinian activists here is something that we have been seeing rise significantly over the last year. And again, thinking of ways and alternatives that I think my colleague Blake brought up very beautifully, of alternatives of how we think about what does it mean to bring safety to our communities. And one of the most important pieces that I think that I could maybe bring to this conversation is especially post 9/11, the ways in which similar surveillance technology has been used and has been used for over the past 20 years in terms of monitoring our Muslim neighbors. These have often been led to federal charges, over policing of Muslim neighborhoods that I think we would see replicated here. So really just another consideration of why, again, I would urge all of you to not support this increase in further policing and instead of creating more ways of building solidarity across our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Amy Pritchard.
Good evening, Mayor Scott, Vice Mayor Webb, and board members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. While I appreciate the board's dedication to public safety, I urge you to reconsider the proposed 5-year contract with Axon Enterprise for the Real-Time Crime Center platform. This ordinance raises significant concerns about transparency, fiscal responsibility, and the long-term implications for our community. In 2022, the board approved a 1-year contract with Fusus, renewable annually for up to 2 additional years, following the City of Little Rock's standard policy for competitively bid contracts. This structure allowed for regular oversight and performance evaluations to ensure the system met the city's needs. Now, the proposed 5-year contract with Axon Enterprise fundamentally alters this structure. We're only in year 2 of the 3-year contract that was initially contemplated. This proposed contract removes the flexibility and accountability provided by the original renewable terms, expands the financial commitment to $864,000, and introduces new terms under Axon's ownership of Fusus. These changes represent a new contract, not a continuation, and require careful consideration to ensure it aligns with the city's needs and priorities. With the failure of the sales tax vote, the city must carefully prioritize its spending. Shifting the cost of the system from seized funds to general revenue puts additional strain on the city's budget. At $864,000 over 5 years, this is a significant financial commitment for a system with limited evidence of effectiveness. Public safety dollars are better invested in strategies that address the root causes of crime, such as mental health resources, affordable housing, and education. The public has not been adequately consulted about this contract or its implications for privacy and civil liberties. The Real-Time Crime Center platform integrates public and private cameras into a real-time monitoring network, raising important questions about data use, retention, and safeguards. Without clear policies and public input, approving this contract risks undermining trust in law enforcement and local government. Trust is the foundation of public safety, and transparency is the only way to maintain it. The agenda references an NPP cooperative agreement as the basis for this contract, but it's my understanding that the specific NPP contract number provided is incorrect. So even if there is an NPP contract for this software, it's important for both the citizens to know what that is and to confirm whether it aligns with the terms and the scopes of this agreement. In closing, this is not about rejecting public safety. It's about ensuring that every decision we make is responsible, transparent, and aligned with the needs and values of our community. The proposed 5-year contract raises questions about its necessity, its financial implications, and whether it follows the city's procurement policies. I urge the board to remove this from the consent agenda and vote against this ordinance and revisit the process to ensure compliance, fiscal responsibility, and public trust. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Karina Espinoza.
Everybody, this is my first time speaking at a city board meeting. Excuse me, I'm too short for this. So I just want to speak candidly with everybody and just give a testimony as to the neighborhood that I live in, which is Southwest Little Rock. I'm also a member of Arkansas Community Organizations. This particular resolution gives me concern over the over-surveillance of our neighborhood. A lot of my colleagues here have already mentioned a lot of the risks that it poses towards religious minorities and racial minorities. I want to speak about my community in particular, which is the immigrant community. I fear that this would be used to target undocumented immigrants, which is a lot of the population that lives in Southwest Little Rock and among all of Little Rock, but mostly concentrated in Southwest. I feel like this would definitely be used to monitor us even more, and for other law enforcement agencies like Immigrations and Customs Enforcement to gather data on us, which scares a lot of the residents there. I've spoken with a lot of them, and just to tell you guys, the real way to know what issues are going on in communities is to actually talk to us, and not just once a month, but to actually meet with us as well about what our actual concerns are, and not just jumping the gun and doing whatever you guys want to do with the city budget, which a lot of it, almost 30% of it, is already going to police. I am a firm believer that police do not help us. They over-criminalize us. Who helps us is the community. So there's a lot of people in different organizations like the Little Rock Freedom Fund and Arkansas Community Organizations and other neighborhood organizations that take care of the community already. For example, in my neighborhood, which is the neighborhood right behind the new school, I forget what the name of it is, there is shooting every single night. We fear that bullets will come raining down on us. There is illegal dumping. There is drag racing, doing donuts in the school parking lot and in the cul-de-sacs behind our neighborhood that has not been addressed, which it will be soon addressed. We have been reaching out to some of y'all. But that is something that we had to come to y'all about instead of y'all coming to us and asking us what is the real solution. And I truly do not believe, and a lot of the colleagues here that are going to speak do not believe that this will add any benefit, it will just scare us from speaking out like I am right now. I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of people that fear that they will be deported or evicted for speaking up about anything that goes on in the city, but particularly this center. Like my colleague Blake Tierney said, there's no concrete data that it will improve anything. And like I said, I think it will jump the gun. And I think we just definitely need to take time to talk to the community and the people who are actually doing the work as well. So yeah, that is just my little tidbit. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Miss Rebecca Berry.
Good evening, Mayor Scott, Vice Mayor Webb, and city directors. My name is Rebecca Berry, and I live in Ward 3. I'm a community organizer and researcher with a master's in social work. I'm here asking you to remove item 1 from the consent agenda and to vote separately on the contract with Axon Fusus. No matter what part of Little Rock we live in or what we look like, we all want to live in a community where we're safe and can get our everyday needs met. But right now, surveillance companies like Axon Fusus are taking advantage of this shared value of ours. Just like Big Pharma takes advantage of communities, Fusus is doing everything they can to make a profit off of us in cities across America while cloaking it in the language of safety and security. They have no expertise in what keeps us safe. We know what keeps us safe. It's making sure all our neighbors have affordable housing and access to the affordable and fresh foods that we need. It means creating good jobs, protecting our schools, and making it easier for people to access therapy and heal from trauma. Every city dollar we direct towards Axon Fusus is a dollar that we divest from these community supports that we desperately need. The surveillance state does not keep us safe. It brings us further out of relationship with one another. And right now, more than ever, we cannot abandon one another. The Real-Time Crime Center is an enormous infringement on our personal liberties, and it impacts every person in this city, especially people who are already targeted by policing and surveillance. Decisions about technology like this warrant extensive community participation, dialogue, and enthusiastic consent across the entire city. Please separate out this item from the consent agenda, and when it comes up for a vote, please vote no on the contract with Axon Fusus. Thank you.
Ms. Dawn Jeffrey.
Hello, I won't be up here long, but I'm glad to know that people got more than 3 minutes tonight. I just wanted to say there's a lot of confusion around this item, and on top of that, I just want to speak a little to the lack of accountability placed on law enforcement with policies. I mean, we continue to give them money, but there are no policies to match for them to be accountable. And I tried to seek several answers prior to this meeting, from asking, could this line item be separated, to asking, well, was it a new contract? I was told it was a contract that y'all could not exit out of, so it had to be approved or there would be consequences. You know, I was told that this item cannot be separated, which I found out tonight that this item can be separated. So that is also what I'm asking you to do. According to this agenda, it's asking to enter into an agreement, not to stay in a contract, which I also found can be renewed yearly, but doesn't have to be. We at the Little Rock Freedom Fund know that safety is not secured by surveillance. Even police won't solve that problem. And even tonight, we've seen extra security, blocked off areas, all for a peaceful celebration to feed the community, which seems like a complete mismanagement of resources to me. We believe that real change comes from within communities. And if we gave half as much as we did to communities as we did to police, I believe we would see real changes in our communities. We are asking that one of the board members or multiple board members, I'm not well versed on how this works, but we're asking that this item be separated. Give us a chance. Don't group these items. There's too much opposition here to keep this item grouped. And I don't think that can be ignored. Time after time, I come to these board meetings and I hear you say, we listen to the citizens, we talk to community. This is what community wants. Well, it's people here, and I thank everyone for coming. It's people here that I got out into the communities and engaged. It used to be me standing up here by myself. I engage people in the communities. I talk to my communities. I eat with my communities. I feed my community because I love my community. And this, I believe, truly would cause more harm to my community. So I'm speaking in opposition of it. And just some of the, if you don't know what FUSIS is, because several people here don't even know what it is. FUSIS is designed to provide law enforcement aid organizations, LEO, and other public safety institutions access to accurate, quote unquote, accurate, relevant information via cloud-based network of authorized video monitoring assets. And I don't know about some of you all, but I often hear several times about cloud servers being hacked. And a lot of times, some of the problems addressed with real-time crime centers is that it's an easy target for hackers to access, which opens up all of the citizens in Little Rock who have signed on to Eyes on the Rock or choose to be a part of this real-time crime center. It exposes them as well. We also have concerns about law enforcement using the information for malicious use. Like Blake said, there's no policies in place, no checks and balances for this. The targeting of minority groups and protesters over policings. And as we know, AI models can inherit biases from historical crime data. And so also speaking to the lack of accuracy of the ShotSpotter that is also a part of the Real-Time Crime Center. So Little Rock Freedom Fund did provide, it's food down there. So when you leave out of here, if you want food, there is food down there. I encourage you to continue to show up and speak up, find out your director, because the 2025 budget is about to come out, and I believe that there should be a people's budget. If they're saying they're speaking to constituents in their community, I'm not talking about going to neighborhood association meetings or meetings with in spaces that most of us aren't even privileged to be in. I'm talking about getting out, door knocking, talking to community centers, going to the Boys and Girls Club, going to athletic games, talking to the citizens, ask, well, what do you want to spend your money on? And don't say public safety, break it down. Well, this amount of money would go to police, this amount would go to the fire department, because we also, prior to the tax failing, we did come before this board and ask you to pause and change it and reallocate it so maybe we could be more favorable in support. But the same citizens that you talked to and said that would approve the tax showed up to the polls and said no. So tonight, with all this opposition, I'm asking you to take pause and actually listen to people here speaking.
Judge Wendell Griffin.
Good evening, Mayor Scott, Vice Mayor Webb, directors. My name is Wendell Griffin. I live in Little Rock and have lived in Little Rock since 1973. Every year I've lived in Little Rock, people have said we need to spend more money on policing. And every year, nobody has been able to prove to me that more money means more safety. I'm a lawyer. I'm a former judge. I've done a little bit of work studying electronic surveillance. There is, and I 10-time double dog dare anybody to challenge me on this, no data that shows that a real-time crime center statistically reduces crime. It is all anecdotal. Now, if you're in medicine, you don't prescribe a course of treatment, a new course of treatment, based on anecdotal evidence. I'm a former judge. There's a shot spotter part of Real-Time Crime Center. I've done some research on that. As a judge, if somebody brings shot spotter evidence into a case, one of the first things the lawyer is going to do is challenge it because it does not meet the test of reliability. There's a legal rule of evidence that requires us to do that. You wouldn't spend $750,000 on something you could not prove would work reliably. You wouldn't do that with your money. Please don't do it with the cities. This is simply a matter of accountability. And you are good people. You are smart people. You are reasonable people. And you are studied people. In your business lives, in your personal lives, you do not do wasteful things. Lastly, there's a term that you use for a surveillance system for people that are confined. It's called incarceration. Everybody in the city is not on parole. Everybody in the city is not on probation. Yet this Real-Time Crime Center system treats every occupant of the city, from the youngest to the oldest, from the most law-abiding to the person who is engaged in just frivolity, as a suspect. That is not a way to build trust. It is not a way to build community. It is a way to make policing harder. It is not culturally competent policing. It is culturally insensitive policing. It is insensitive to people of color. It's insensitive to people of minority backgrounds. It's insensitive to people from immigrant backgrounds. It's insensitive to people who protest. It's insensitive to people who are impoverished. It's insensitive to people who are unhoused. My request is that you please separate this item. Deny this request. It's a contract. You don't have to enter into it. Nobody's holding a gun to your head. You don't have to do this. If you do this, people will be hurt. Your trust will be damaged. Community goodwill will be lost. And you will not be able to show statistically that the city of Little Rock is one iota safer. I beg you, do not do this to this board. Do not do this to this city. We can do better than this. Let's do it.
Kennedy Valley. Kennedy Valley.
Hello. Hi, my name's Kennedy. It's my first city board meeting, but this is an important issue to me, so I had to come out. I think we have bigger fish to fry. I really do. $800,000 is a whole lot of money to spend, especially considering how much the police already get. You know, the median household income, I believe, is like, in Arkansas, it's like, what, 41,000? And entry-level police officers already get 50,000. You know, we spend a whole lot of money on them already. But here are my points. Facial recognition is unreliable, I'd say, especially for black folks. Not like, it's just been shown, it's just less, it just works less on, you know, people of color such as myself. For example, let's say it's a dark day and, you know, if Mr. Miller was to pass by camera, it could pick him up and say he looks just like, you know, Mr. Griffin over here. Because they have like similar enough features, you know, if it's dark, they're not 4K cameras. Same thing, you know, if I shaved, me and Dawn, like we look similar enough to a grainy camera. I'm telling you. So I would be pretty angry if somebody who looked like me was out there committing crimes. I got picked up on somebody's Ring camera and I get called in. You know, that's just not something that I want to deal with. Yeah. So again, hacking is a big issue too. I know third-party cameras such as Ring cameras and people's like in-home systems, especially when they first came out, they were very vulnerable to hackers' attacks. So I'm gonna put myself in a hacker's shoes. Let's say this passes. Let's not pass it, please. But let's say in a dystopian world, next year it passes, and it's Christmas, people are bringing in their gifts, and it's all on camera. I'm a hacker, I'm reading all that information on that street, a hacker in the area, and now I know which houses that I'm gonna rob, I'm seeing all that information, I know what time they're leaving, coming in, everything. I think that's not something that I wanna deal with. Again, that's a lot of vulnerable city information, people's personal, that's just stuff that I don't want just out there in the cloud, just in somebody's system. I don't think it's gonna fix anything. And furthermore, I truly don't think, a camera can only, you can only pick up information on a camera, but it's not gonna prevent the problem from happening in the first place. They say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So why not spend the money on things that are gonna keep people out of trouble instead of, trying to surveil them all the time? Like maybe spend the money on some parks, on education. I heard there are schools in talks of being consolidated, shut down, things like that. Education definitely kept me out of trouble, everything like that. I know I probably would be not a good, I mean, I probably wouldn't be the person I am if I wasn't, doing, you remember the kids that came in, the band kids. I was in band in school, and I guarantee those kids with their GPAs, with their extracurriculars, and with the things that they're doing and competing and everything, they're going to go and they're going to have a good future ahead of them. They're not going to be going out and stealing people's cars and everything like people who don't have that same access. So why don't we make sure that we can continue that, by investing in those things that matter instead of a bunch of cameras and surveillance. Cloud, I mean, that storage, when we talk about the technology side of things too, all right, how many people have ever run out of storage on your phone and 9 times out of 10 it's all the videos? Yeah, that's a whole lot of videos to keep, servers, they say it's in the cloud, but it's not air. It has to be kept on servers everywhere. That's a whole lot of upkeep. You have to have a whole lot of people taking care of it. I just really do think that we need to go to the source, focus on the parks, focus on the education, focus on the mental health, focus on the housing, because we really could divest those funds into, focusing on some of those things or maybe one of those things really hard. And I guarantee that could bring down crime way more than just monitoring the whole city. I think I have one more point. Oh yeah, also lots of voters already voted against this in the sales tax. I mean, I heard that I think half of Little Rock, a little over half of Little Rock voted, which is, over half, which I mean, on a national scale, I'd say that's a pretty good amount. We could get more, but that's still a pretty good amount of people. We voted against the sales tax. I know I did. And I just don't think it's just a good idea to go back on what people already voted for and what we already chose. It would just damage trust personally. And I think that, after hearing all this opposition, after hearing some wonderful points, especially from Blake and especially from Mr. Griffin and Dawn, I don't know how you could have the heart to vote yes on this. Frankly, I just don't. It would damage trust. I plan on staying in Little Rock. I feel like I'm one of the younger people here. I plan on staying here. I plan on staying involved. I want to be able to trust you guys. I want to be able to, say that my city board members care about our concerns. And frankly, just on the principle of democracy, I really think y'all should vote no on this and just put this as a completely separate issue than everything else that it's bundled in with. All right, thank you.
Miss Cynthia M., that doesn't state the last name.
Hello. I'd like to yield my time to Roomba Yambu, who is also on the cards. Yes.
All right, we'll just go to Roomba Yambu.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rumba. I'm the executive director of a community nonprofit in Southwest. I'm asking you to also separate this and then oppose it for all the reasons that folks have said, but primarily coming to speak to you on behalf of our membership, on behalf of our clients, folks who are in need of a lot of things, right? Folks who are in need of food primarily, of housing. Those are the top two issues that we have every year of people who come to us. They need housing and they need food. That's what they need. That's what they need to stay safe. That's what they need to not engage in situations that are gonna not make them safe. They need housing and they need food. Time and time again. Every year, we have more people coming to us. Every year, we have more people who are hungry. Every year, we have more people who don't have a place to live in this city. And so, hearing you, I can't remember who spoke, who read that piece at the beginning, talking about taking pride in the city and who's responsible for the city, right? And how all that falls on y'all. I want you to really take that to heart, because I heard it and I took that to heart. I show up every day to work to support these folks who are hungry, who don't have a place to live. And I hope that you are showing up and thinking about that. How many of y'all have $25 on you? In your bank account, on your pocket? How many of y'all in the audience have $25 on you? Because whenever I go to work, if I give $25 to somebody who has no place to live and who has no food, they stare at me and they cry. And they thank me for $25. For $25. And they're gonna stretch that money as long as they can to stay alive. And so when I hear numbers like 800 and something thousand, something so far beyond of the budget that my organization has and all my partner organizations have, I think about how many times $25 fits into that. And how many times the citizens of this city wish that they had those $25 to stay alive. Now, if you grew up not having to starve, if you grew up having a roof over your head every day, if you grew up not being a child who had to work, you probably don't know what it's like to put yourself to sleep hungry. I know what that's like. My community knows what that's like. My clients, my members, they know what that's like. I've never had you all come to our center and talk to us. I never had you all come and talk to our clients and our members. Mr. Mayor, I've had you go around a circle at Plaza Frida and talk to all the organizations there, but you stepped away from my organization. You never approached us, and I remember that. I remember that because I hear you talk about caring about the folks here. But you never sat down and wondered what it's like to serve those folks, to have to hear it every day. You already heard all the reasons why this is problematic, why this is gonna be hard, why it's challenging, why you should reconsider. I want you to think about that as, even if you vote for it today, as you leave here today, think about $25. Think about how easy it is for you to get those $25. And I hope that you can imagine what it's like for me to sit across from somebody who's crying, who hasn't had food. To sit across from me crying that they're so thankful that those $25, they're gonna make it last as long as they can. To me, that is showing up for your community. That is caring and loving your people. I care and I love the people here. Everyone who comes through my doors or my centers, all my staff does that. I want y'all to feel that. We have been vandalized at the center. We have cameras. And just as other folks have said, the cameras did nothing. They look grainy. They look grainy. We can't tell license plates. We can't tell faces. And we're still getting vandalized. You know why? because people are trying to take things so that they can go sell them and buy food. That's why they're vandalizing us. So we have had folks come to us and we have said, please don't take this. We will give you the food. And that stops it. So I'm telling you from experience, as somebody that goes to work and has to deal with this, right? Of folks coming and maybe not knowing how to act right or not having other option to act right. That if you offer them what they need to feel safe, if you're not starving at night, if you're not starving during the day, your mind has the capacity to be able to regulate you and not panic and do things that you don't want to do, that you're just having to do out of necessity. So I hope that you take this, just enough of this, with you, and remember, next time you go and buy a drink somewhere and you spend those $25, because you're gonna spend it. Next time you go and get that coffee twice in a row and you're gonna spend those $25. Next time you're doing whatever you're doing with $25, I hope you remember that there's somebody in this city who is starving tonight, who's sleeping on the street. They don't need the cameras. They need the food. And there are so many people historically, one that I think you all know best, right? Somebody in the Bible who made sure people were fed. That was his thing. He went out and he walked and he made sure people have food and he made sure people were listened to. I hope that you strive to be like that person. Thank you.
Carmen Angelica, Ms. Carmen Angelica.
I'm a little taller. Hi, esteemed city leaders. I have a bit of a more abstract discussion I wanted to have with y'all. Everyone was very concrete, but I'm gonna tell you kind of like my story. My name is Carmen, as you know. I'm a Little Rock native. For better or worse, I've lived here all my life. I went to a Catholic school in Southwest Little Rock, and just 5 minutes from here, you'll find my alma mater, Central High. I obtained my bachelor's in nursing at UA Little Rock, and I'm currently a nurse who cares for our city's dying, and I serve on the board of a harm reduction project. My 28 years here in Little Rock has shaped me profoundly. I've experienced the strength, beauty, and complexity of all Little Rock's communities. I've enjoyed incredible food from all backgrounds, whether it be a taqueria in Southwest Little Rock or barbecue on Broadway. I've admired art from local and distant creators at the AMFA and immersed myself in live music scenes spanning from hardcore rap and punk. But I've also seen the deep disparities and poverty that our city not only ignores, but profits off from the incarceration of our most vulnerable citizens, exploiting their labor as cheap workers in jails and prisons. To paint a clearer picture, Arkansas consistently ranks 48th in healthcare, 46th in poverty, and struggles with some of the worst walkability in this nation. For years, we've pushed unhoused people into the woods along all the highways and bulldozed the areas that were covering them. And don't even get me started on renting and zoning laws here. Now, I don't need to explain all this to y'all. You're the city leaders after all. You're educated and aware of how poorly our beautiful natural state compares to the rest of the country. But it doesn't have to be this way. Little Rock is Arkansas's capital. We can set a better example. But when over a quarter of our city's budget is spent on public safety, let's be real here, policing, while only a fraction of that goes to public goods and social services, it's no wonder we fail to fund structural improvements that prevent crime in the first place. We don't have to rely on profiting off our siblings' labor and pain. In healthcare, and this point has been stressed quite a few times before I came up, and I use healthcare because, you know, I'm a nurse, right? It's a fundamental truth that prevention saves lives, time, and money. Whether it's heart disease, diabetes, or illnesses tied to smoking, we see this every day. The same principles can be applied to our city. My only question, rhetorical of course, is will you give us the opportunity to choose our fate, or will you go against our self-determination? Thank you.
Mr. Connor Thompson.
Good evening, Board, Mayor Scott, Vice Mayor Webb. My name is Connor Thompson. I'm a lawyer, a Little Rock native, and a policing researcher at William H. Bowen Law School. And everything I'm sharing today is my own personal opinion and not the views of my employer. I'm here to lend my voice in opposition to the resolution authorizing a contract with Axon Enterprises. I ask this board to consider the consequences of devoting a greater share of our city's budget to servicing contracts with unaccountable private corporations, and how expanded surveillance capabilities of this technology will affect the lives of residents south of 630 and those at risk of being targeted by the incoming Trump administration. Axon is a publicly traded company worth over $45 billion. Axon represents the interests of its shareholders, not the people of Little Rock. Case in point, on top of the $864,500 in the people's tax dollars the city intends to spend with this contract, individuals and businesses who wish to participate in Eyes on the Rock would still be compelled to purchase a Fusus device and pay an annual subscription fee. This is a profit-making bonanza for the Axon Corporation at the expense of the people of Little Rock. This board, as Blake and several others have already pointed out, made what I consider to be the mistake in January of unanimously renewing the ShotSpotter contract, a highly dubious technology solely concentrated in the poorest sectors of our city. I hope this board will follow the example of Chicago and decline to renew the ShotSpotter contract when it is up for renewal again in December. Consider how these expanded surveillance capabilities could empower the agenda of the incoming Trump administration. What role would these real-time crime center tools play in carrying out mass deportations, prosecuting women seeking reproductive health care, and surveilling those exercising protected First Amendment rights of protest? We've already seen the willingness of the Little Rock Police Department to cooperate with federal agencies through the Joint Terrorism Task Force and its Intelligence Sharing Fusion Center during the 2020 George Floyd protests. Once you have this technology, the toothpaste can't be easily put back in the tube. We need guardrails in place limiting integration with facial recognition software, Flock automated license plate readers, predictive policing, and other AI-powered surveillance tools we don't even know about yet. Even if you ask us to trust you this time, how will future mayoral administrations and police chiefs use the expanded surveillance capabilities enabled through this technology? Rates of violent and property crimes are down in the city of Little Rock. This is the perfect opportunity to invest in preventative programs that strike at the root causes of harm. I urge this board to reject this contract and for residents of Little Rock to avoid further enriching the Axon Corporation at the expense of themselves and their neighbors, and to say no to Eyes on Little Rock. Thank you.
Benjamin Harrison. Benjamin Harrison.
In a democracy, the people rule and the government obeys. So I find it very interesting that 2 weeks ago, the people said we don't want to give the police any more funding, and here we are today talking about giving the police more funding. So in 2013, there was a study that showed that public opinion was only able to get about 30% of the legislation that it supported turned into a law. 45% of what wealthy elites supported became law, right? And we've had Citizens United since then. So the situation has deteriorated, right? And if you look at 68% of, like national data applied to Little Rock says 68% of the city supported a ceasefire in Gaza, right? And we know that during COVID, 75% of the country supported a mask mandate. We didn't get that. And that has led to mass death, mass disability, and now we have like our kids going to work, right? And so this is $1 million to continue attacking our communities, grabbing our most vulnerable people and putting them in prison camps to work for 30 cents an hour, I think. Right? So I think that our community works pretty well around issues. I would like to see us organize more geographically to address housing in our communities, maybe through land trusts, healthcare access, and also defense against state violence that these folks are trying to encourage. Not just to get cheap labor for Walmart and Wendy's, right? And so I'm encouraging, if you want, I've heard a lot of people here talk about wanting to be talked to, right? Wanting people to come to your community. I think Blake mentioned CPCs. So we're obviously not being asked about these policies, right? This is an undemocratic thing that's happening. So I'm encouraging you to deliberate with your neighbors, to engage in town halls like our revolutionary ancestors did, and vote and solve the problems together in your community. I think I want to talk about delegates compared to representatives, because delegates only act on the instructions that are given to them. And mandatory recallable candidates, when they don't only act on what they've been told to, they get recalled. So communities, obviously, I've heard from everybody here tonight, communities know their problems, and they know maybe probably when they get together, they're gonna figure out how to solve them. We have people already coming up here and talking about how to solve them. And then I just wonder, because of like Hurricane Helene, where we saw an $8 billion shortfall in FEMA funding ended up as a weapons package to Israel, who's gonna come to you really, really in a time of emergency? So I think building local power in your communities through town hall structures ensures that we're not gonna be left behind, right? Because clearly this is not about public safety. So organize with your neighbors, learn how to vote and make decisions together, and build local power. So after a little bit of that, I think that the institutions that they are using against us are gonna side with us.
So what's what tomorrow?
Mr. Kenneth Grand, apologies.
My R's are horrible, my apologies.
I'm left-handed, mine are like that too.
Hey, I'm left-handed too, Twinkie's here.
Yeah.
My name's Kenny Grand. I escaped a life of incarceration by the skin of my teeth. My father was institutionalized. He was in and out of prison for most of my childhood. He actually, I got a phone call when I was 11 because he OD'd on heroin. I was lucky to get a stepfather who was a sharecropper out in the rural part of the state, but there was little to no economic opportunities there. So I really applied myself, maintained a job through high school to have a vehicle to be able to go to college. So I went to college at UCA. And there I saw a situation where you had like an over-resourced law enforcement situation. Like minimum wage at the time was $7.25. I was working 2 part-time jobs and going to school full-time, right? I ended up doing 18 days in county for a failure to confine an animal charge, just failure to pay, multiple failure to pays, because there was no money. It was either pay your rent and keep the lights on or pay the police. My brother is actually incarcerated in New Orleans, so he wasn't as fortunate as I was. So I'm happy to live in Little Rock comparatively, because it's a reasonable place to stay. You're not under an incredible amount of scrutiny or harassment. I'm passably white enough, so usually I can get away with certain things and, not have to worry so much. But the problem with this situation is you're looking at nearly $1 million going into a partnership with a private corporation, which needs an ROI. Like, whenever you over-resource a law enforcement infrastructure, you've got to have crime. You've got to have some sort of revenue, right? So, like, you're going to be looking at pressure to use the license plate scanners to catch people on lapsed insurance and stuff like that. And to y'all, that doesn't sound bad, but when somebody's got $15 in the bank, after the week's end, and then they got a city fine, and then they got potential, court dates and stuff like that, that compounds and compounds. So whenever you over-resource the law enforcement infrastructure, you end up putting an undue amount of stress on the working poor. And not only that, like, we have a lot of underutilized resources, and there's been massive gross misallocation of resources. I'm thinking particularly of, like, the 12th Street substation, where they were, the public was told years ago when they first moved there, we're setting up here temporarily while we renovate the other substation. Now that's a fixture in the community there, in a community that is traditionally highly over-policed. But yeah, but I mean, that facility could potentially house, small business development, incubation partnerships and stuff like that. You've got the substation down in South Main over here that's in a high rise. We could be repurposing that to house people, keep people off the streets, give them opportunities. And I'm going to be coming to the City Hall in the near future for certain development initiatives, and it's going to be disappointing to hear, I'm sorry, Mr. Grand, but the city doesn't have the budget for this economic development package because we gave it all away to surveillance. We've already got this infrastructure in place. We're already trying the Eyes on the Rock program. I was under the impression that law enforcement was going to be present so I could ask questions about, like, sort of deliverables now, right? Like, because last time I checked, there was 16 people who've offered to use their private cameras, right? So we already have this standing infrastructure, and it just seems kind of like a massive waste of city resources to sink $800,000+ into a 5-year contract when we already have the programs going with another firm. And like I said, whenever you commodify a public good like law enforcement, it usually, you've got to find ways to pay those salaries. And a lot of that times that means you start creating policies that's tough on crime. And you have situations like myself who's doing time for, a month and a half away from my job. The only thing that kept me from being homeless was the fact that my roommate paid my bills for the month. And I was such a good worker that my bosses didn't fire me for disappearing. And I was bunked up with murderers and bank robbers and drug dealers. And so this is doing the opposite of creating opportunities for people. This is doing the opposite of doing face-to-face community policing. And I urge y'all to seriously consider voting no, separating this out, trying to find more deliverables, doing a feasibility report, because, y'all are also elected officials, and the people of Little Rock aren't afraid to use their political assets to replace y'all if need be. And it would be horrible to have to message every registered voter in your respective districts saying we voted down this city tax increase because we didn't want to see a carceral state built in Little Rock, but then less than a month later they pushed it through. So that's about it. Thank y'all.
Mr. Mike Poe.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Board, citizens. I'm going to speak on a couple of different personal things that I think matter to this. But first, I know a lot of the things about this company have been spoken or covered already, but just a little bit of research will show you that this is a publicly traded company. When we're giving $864,000 plus fees and taxes to a publicly traded company whose only job is to give the shareholders money, we're not protecting our citizens. We're protecting their shareholders. So Axum bought Fusus just about 9 months ago for $240 million, okay? By August, there was 150 agencies that were using this software. That's still less than 1% of agencies. So they've doubled that in the past few months, and each time it's probably $864,000 plus fees and taxes. So they just, I mean, if it's $1 million, let's call it $1 million. You just got to do that 240 times, and they still won't be up past 1%. Do the math. I'm not a mathematician or a math master's, but I have a bachelor's, so I know math well enough. I definitely know money math, and I know what voting means, and I voted against this. And I think a lot of people in this room voted against this, if not all of us, and maybe a lot of you on the board even looked at this logically, because a lot of you come from a law background and from public service and saw that this is not a good decision. I want to tell you that I don't think that we're vanguards here. I really don't think that we're like cutting edge in Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm sorry to inform you. I'm really surprised if everybody in this room can program a universal remote from the 90s. Seriously. I mean that. I mean, and here's the deal. You're telling me that this is a camera, we'll say. This is going to stop crime. So if somebody's got a gun to my head, how is that stopping crime? It's not going to stop crime. So we're talking about adding AI and drones and more cameras to the tune of $1 million when we could be helping the homeless, helping the poor, helping our city infrastructure, doing things that mean something to this city. But we're here, honestly, embarrassed because we voted against this, and we had to show up today. We had to come and speak on this, and I speak from my heart. It thinks for me. My brain isn't perfect, and my heart isn't perfect either. But I think they're in the right place inside of me, and I think that I know when I see a bad deal. I've been in business for 35 years myself. I know this is a bad deal. It's an idiot contract. We don't need this. Whose buddy is this? Whose buddy is putting this up? Who's handshaking on this? Who's making the deals on this? Which one of you guys and which one of your friends is saying that's a good idea? And how many of you feel pressured by the other people sitting here to do what that person next to you says? This is ridiculous. And although I don't have the ambition right now, and I have too many more important things to do, but I could have intention to sit on the other side of that. I have intention. There are people sitting over there that I didn't vote for. But yet I'm here, and you're here. I voted for Blake. No offense, Joan. I think you're a good person. I think you've done well. It'd be great if you'd retire. But I can't ask you to do that because it's your life. My own mother, she's about 70 years old. She works for a local judge. She's worked as a paralegal here her whole life and a court reporter. She's had guns held to her head at banks. She's been robbed multiple times. She lost a son to homicide. Now he's an adult adopted son. It's a black autistic man named T.C. Edwards. And now I'm going to get personal with you. I think December 7th of this year, in just a few weeks, makes 10 years. And there is no case. LRPD is not doing their job. I called the chief of police more than you probably call the chief of police. He's heard me speak on this so many times. I call him once, maybe twice a month and leave him a message. Once every few months, a homicide detective will follow up and call me because they say the chief asked me to. And nothing comes from that, just like nothing came from anything to do with this homicide case. And within 3 months, by the time, this was December 7th, 2014, by the time 2015 rolled around, I wasn't getting any calls answered whatsoever. And this person, who is the only suspect in that homicide, shot 2 more people at Wright Community Market. about less than 5 miles from my house, on camera and audio, because he asked them for weed, and they said, "No, we don't have any weed for you, man." So he shot them both. On video and audio. When we sat in the courtroom, we watched it on the video monitors. It did nothing. The state was going to let it pretty much be time served. He might have did 6 months. And that's because those two people wouldn't stand up. And they wouldn't come to court that day. So I found through pursuing every single federal agency, the ATF got on board with me, and I signed an affidavit, and I became a federal witness, which I am still today, to that case involving those two men that were shot that didn't stand up for themselves. I'm standing here for them. And I stood up for them in court every single time. And now this murderer, in my opinion, stands to be on your streets in just a few weeks. What are you actually doing to protect us? Nothing. You aren't doing anything, just like the Little Rock Police Department chief is doing nothing. Nothing. And this is not going to stop crime. People doing the right thing stops crime. Like Blake says, first responders that aren't always police ready to shoot people, potentially. Not every time. But you have to see, I've seen a lot more trauma than the average person. I actually witnessed a police officer murder a man in front of the Arkansas Times years ago. I've actually seen murdered bodies of my family members. I've actually had a man murdered just right outside on my sidewalk a few years back. And so now I want to speak on, simply wrap this up by giving you quotes from police officers, okay? So throughout my life, my mother has dated, seriously, several police officers that were really great people. I have several police officers that are really close friends of mine that I see that have really helped on this case. And I respect them, but I think that having said that, it is frustrating when things don't work the way you think it should. And I am well versed that we do not live in a law and order world. This is not television. This is real life. And so back to 2014, when I compelled the police to get this person to stop forcing crack on my brother. He had been clean and sober for 10 years, had 2 jobs, was not sober off of alcohol, that's a misnomer, or cannabis, but he was sober off of hard drugs for more than 10 years and doing well in the community, but I needed to take care of my grandmother full time. While doing that, I could not spend 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning with him, so he ended up at an after-hours bar, ran into this person who took advantage of him. This person took him home, went inside, and pushed crack on him, which he did. And then that person continued to show up at his house almost every other day and take every bit of money he had by making him strip down naked and searching everything he owned and taking the money and saying, you know, this is just business. This is what I have to do to you crackheads to get my money, but we're friends. So you're going to smoke or I'm not leaving. And he'd make him smoke. And we tried to stop it. I tried to stop him personally. I had him point guns at my head. I even had him point a gun at me on our 4th police report. When the police left the scene, he drove by with his girlfriend and tapped the gun on the glass. Do you think I feel protected by the police? No. That 5th police report, and they were telling me to come down to the house. I wouldn't go to the house where the police were. 3 squad cars were there, and I did not feel safe going there. That's not safety, all right? And so that 5th police officer, as much as it was hard to take, he told me something that I keep with me today, and he said, I'm sorry, you're going to have to police yourself. This is one man's word against another's. So didn't matter the lineup, didn't matter our report, didn't matter photographs, audio recordings, all the evidence we had, that stuff didn't matter. And I got in that garage and tried to catch this person on camera, which seemed so futile. I felt so stupid and so scared. I was there for 5 hours. I had to go to the bathroom. I hit the button on the garage to leave, and that fake patrol car rolled up that he drove as I'm opening the garage. And there was nothing I could do but leave. So I jumped in the Tahoe that I borrowed from a friend of mine without a license plate. And I ripped the side mirror off of that, pulling out of the garage so fast to take to the street. To drive where? Where is the only place I felt that I could potentially get safety? Right down here on Markham, to the police station. He pulled away a few blocks away. He was absolutely chasing me with 3 guns in the car, because that's what were found in his vehicle when he was later arrested. The police officer that I spoke to that day told me to tell others that it took 20 rings for 911 to answer. And that's not the first time that happened to me. It's actually not the first time that somebody chased me like that. In fact, fast forward to 2021, I had 2 20-year-olds pull up to me on Kavanaugh Boulevard, window to window, and shoot me in my eyes and my ear and my face with an airsoft rifle that was automatic, battery or CO2 powered, blasting me. Who knows why? Who knows why? We still don't know. Actually, the judge just recused himself from this case. I'm not sure what's going on with that case years later, but I do know that these people admitted guilt, that they are guilty, and this is what they did. And I do know that when that incident happened, they slammed into the back of my car when I pulled down the street and then drove away. And then I pursued them. Turned out they were behind me, and they followed me as well. Where did I go again? This is now 3 years ago. To the police department. It's 5:30. They followed me because they're idiots, and so they were caught on camera. But that's not helping the case. In fact, I hit the button on the intercom to get police to open the door, and the lady said, "There's only me here." There was one police officer in the whole building, and she wouldn't come outside. So while they drove away because they realized I had brought them to the police station, I had to wait for 45 minutes for a patrol car to show up. And then what I want you to take to heart is what that police officer said to me. He said, "We don't have patrol in Hillcrest, in the Heights. So this has been happening a lot. And we don't have anybody because these are the white neighborhoods. And we don't have patrols in these neighborhoods looking for things like this." A couple of weeks ago, I sat in a homicide trial for 3 days with some friends of mine who had lost their grandson and their son and their friend. And I watched 3 of that person's friends tell the jury of 12 people that all of this evidence, including the technology, GPS data, the bullet, and testimony from these 3 people, they all said this guy did the killing. The 2 people that did the right thing, they each got 25 and 30 years. I should say the 2 brown people that spoke that day, one that didn't even have a gun, is now doing 25 years. The white kid, we don't know. Judge has recused himself. We don't know what's going on with that case at all. But I do know that the other person, the person who did the shooting, that 3 people said did the shooting, and we all know who did the shooting, they're free because the 12th juror didn't believe the technology. They didn't believe in the technology. So I'm going to say to you one more time, just like everybody else said, please take this off. Please place it to the side. Don't keep it together, all right? Please vote against this. This is a misuse of our funds, which we've already voted no for. Like, even your own police officers who did tell me, please let them know that it takes 19 to 20 phone calls. That's just 3 years ago. That's not 10 years ago. That's just 3 years ago. It took 20 rings for somebody to pick something up, and one person was at the police station at 5:30. That's ridiculous. We need people. We don't need to replace people with robots and AI and drones and surveillance and companies that are publicly traded to take advantage of it. It says right here, if you Google this, that not only the government gets access to this, but private companies will get access to this real crime data. And that's not even counting the hackers. That's just ridiculous. I can't believe that you think that we're going to be in this less than 1% of communities that do this. We're like cutting edge technology here. Are you kidding me? This is not Little Rock, Arkansas. I mean, this is ridiculous. And thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry I took too much. I apologize to everybody.
Director Adcock, you had your hand raised. Excuse me. Director Adcock?
Are you ready for a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
I move for the adoption of the consent agenda.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, would you please read the group items?
An ordinance approving a planned zoning development to establish a planned district residential titled LNA Enterprises PDR located at 1801 Aldersgate Road, City of Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. An ordinance approving a planned zoning development to establish a planned district residential titled Honeysuckle Place, Phase 2 PDR, located on the east side of Honeysuckle Lane, City of Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. An ordinance approving a planned zoning development to establish a planned district residential titled Larkowski PDR, located at 4306 West 11th Street, City of Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid to authorize the city manager to enter into a sole source contract with Logos Imaging in an amount not to exceed $62,356.22 funded by the State Homeland Security Grant Program for the purchase of one Logos Stenos X-ray system for the Little Rock Fire Department bomb squad, to declare an emergency and for other purposes. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid to authorize the city manager to enter into a sole source contract with Ideal Blasting in an amount not to exceed $49,058 funded by the State Homeland Security Grant Program for the purchase of one Zeus Ideal remote firing device for the Little Rock Fire Department bomb squad, to declare an emergency and for other purposes. An ordinance to authorize the issuance of limited tax general obligation capital improvement bonds, pledging tax revenue sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on the bonds, prescribing other matters relating thereto, to declare an emergency and for other purposes. An ordinance to accept the ELOPAC annexation to add certain lands to the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, to zone said land to I-3 heavy industrial and for other purposes. First reading.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Second reading.
An ordinance approving a planned zoning development to establish a planned district residential titled LNA Enterprises PDR, located at 1801 Aldersgate Road. An ordinance approving a planned zoning development to establish a planned district residential titled Honeysuckle Place, Phase 2 PDR, located on the east side of Honeysuckle Lane. An ordinance approving a planned zoning development to establish a planned district residential titled Larkowski PDR, located at 4306 West 11th Street. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid to authorize the city manager to enter into a sole source contract with Logos Imaging in an amount not to exceed $62,356.22 funded by the State Homeland Security Grant Program for the purchase of one Logos Stenos X-ray system for the Little Rock Fire Department bomb squad, to declare an emergency. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid to authorize the city manager to enter into a sole source contract with Ideal Blasting in an amount not to exceed $49,058 funded by the State Homeland Security Grant Program for the purchase of one Zeus Ideal remote firing device for the Little Rock Fire Department bomb squad, to declare an emergency. An ordinance authorizing the issuance of limited tax general obligation capital improvement bonds, pledging tax revenue sufficient to pay the principal of an interest on the bonds, prescribing other matters relating thereto, to declare an emergency. An ordinance to accept the ELOPAC annexation to add certain lands to the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, to zone said land to I-3 heavy industrial. Second reading.
There's a motion second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Third reading.
An ordinance approving a plan,
Mayor, for the record, because Director Lewis is not physically present, there were 8 votes to suspend the rules and to go to the third reading.
Correct.
an ordinance approving a plan zoning development and to establish a planned district residential titled LNA Enterprises PDR located at 1801 Aldersgate Road. An ordinance approving a plan zoning development to establish a planned district residential titled Honeysuckle Place Phase 2 PDR located on the east side of Honeysuckle Lane. An ordinance approving a plan zoning development to establish a planned district residential titled Lukowski PDR located at 4306 West 11th Street. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid to authorize the city manager to enter into a sole source contract with Logos Imaging in an amount not to exceed $62,356.22, funded by the State Homeland Security Grant Program for the purchase of one Logos Stanos X-ray system for the Little Rock Fire Department Bomb Squad to declare an emergency. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid to authorize the city manager to enter into a sole source contract with Ideal Blasting in an amount not to exceed $49,058, funded by the State Homeland Security Grant Program for the purchase of one Zeus Ideal remote firing device for the Little Rock Fire Department Bomb Squad to declare an emergency. An ordinance authorizing the issuance of limited tax general obligation capital improvement bonds, pledging tax revenue sufficient to pay the principal of an interest on the bonds, prescribing other matters relating thereto, to declare an emergency. An ordinance to accept the ELOPAC annexation to add certain lands to the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, to zone said land to I-3 heavy industrial. Third and final reading.
Members of the board, we've had 3 readings. Are there any questions? Are there any questions? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. We also have emergency clauses. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read item 23.
Mayor, again, because the emergency clause also deals with the bonds, Director Lewis did vote for it even though she's not physically in the room.
Yes, sir.
An ordinance to amend the Little Rock, Arkansas ordinance number 22,343, December 5th, 2023, and ordinance number 22,502, August 20th, 2024, to adjust the fiscal year 2024 budget ordinance to reflect revenue and expenditure adjustments for the general fund, street fund, vehicle storage fund, and waste disposal fund, to declare an emergency, first reading, and for other purposes, first reading.
There's a motion. Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Second reading.
An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas ordinance number 22,343, December 5th, 2023, and ordinance number 22,502, August 20th, 2024, to adjust the fiscal year 2024 budget ordinance to reflect revenue and expenditure adjustments for the general fund, street fund, vehicle storage fund, and waste disposal fund, to declare an emergency. Second reading.
Second. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Third reading.
An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas ordinance number 22,343, December 5th, 2023, and ordinance number 22,502, August 20th, 2024, to adjust the fiscal year 2024 budget ordinance to reflect revenue and expenditure adjustments for the general fund, street fund, vehicle storage fund, and waste disposal fund, to declare an emergency. Third and final reading.
Members of the board, we've had 3 readings. Are there any questions? Are there any questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read item number 20. There's also emergency clause. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Madam
Mayor,
Clerk.
in favor of the emergency clause, so you have my thoughts.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read item number 24.
An ordinance approving a planned zoning development and to establish a planned commercial district titled De La Rosa Revised PCD located at 9123 Chico Road, City of Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. First reading.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Second reading.
An ordinance approving a planned zoning development to establish a planned commercial district titled De La Rosa Revised PCD located at 9123 Chico Road. Second reading.
Suspend the rules and place on third and final reading.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, third reading.
An ordinance approving a plan zoning development to establish a planned commercial district titled De La Rosa Revised PCD located at 9123 Chico Road, third and final reading.
Giselle Gris, I know you're here to speak for. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. My name is Giselle Gress. I'm speaking on behalf of De La Rosa. The reason why I'm here is because my mom wants to have her food trucks on that lot that she owns, and the lot happens to be a commercial lot. But she wants to keep her food trucks on there permanently so she can operate out of her commercial lot. The city has been, the city told us that we couldn't stay there, and they never told us why or where we should move it until another employee of the city came to us and told us that we need to move it to a storage, somewhere to like a storage unit or anywhere else that's not on the lot. But the storage unit that's nearby, that's near the lot, has been broken into so many times, and my mom just doesn't want to risk it and move the food truck there. And so we're just asking that she's able to keep her food trucks on there permanently. I mean, we're not causing anyone any harm. We're not wasting anything like dirty water on the roads or anything. She makes sure she has her dumpster cleared, containers for dirty water and grease so she can dispose them there. So we're just asking that you all approve of her keeping her food trucks there permanently. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Adcock?
Yes, I would like to have Mr. Brad come up here and talk to this.
Good evening, Mayor Board. How you doing?
Mr. Jordan, would you tell the board why this cannot be allowed to stay on this property?
Well, staff feels that this property would be better served if there would be more permanence to it. There's a food truck there now. There's a mobile home that says office that acts as a storage building. And there's also a container that is used as a retail space. Staff feels that this impermanence is not the best fit for the neighborhood and the community.
Are food trucks allowed to stay permanently on property?
Not on property that has not been approved as a planned development, no, ma'am.
And this is on the corner of Baseline and Gower Springs. It's also a service station and a convenience store on one of the busiest streets in Southwest Little Rock. And with all the food truck business and the other business, it's just accidents after accidents.
That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. Give an example. There's even an example.
Thank you, Brad.
Give an example of an accident. When is she in Southwest?
Yeah, I was like, when she in Southwest?
Director Phillips?
And this question for Director Jordan. I just want to be clear. I thought this was on Chico Road. Is that correct?
It is on Chico, 9123 Chico Road.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was.
Okay, I'm sorry, it is the Chico Road.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you describe this property to the board, please?
So the property is fenced on if you were to be looking at it facing from the street. There is a cargo container that most of us have seen that is selling retail things, shirts, other sort of goods that you may find in other retail establishments. There is one food truck on the property, and again, there's a manufactured home. The project actually calls to add another food truck to the site as well. In the back, there's a dumpster, and on the site plan, it's marked a couple of, I think, grease grease barrels, I think is what they're described.
Yes. Director Wyrick also has opposed this, correct?
That's the way I understand it, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the board? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Nays have it. Is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, no, sorry, we got citizens. Kate Wright.
Point of clarification before we move forward. Kate Wright, she's coming up. I'm trying to understand, and the citizens are trying to understand, did you refuse to separate the line item, and did you just approve to give the $865 odd $1,000 to the police for the real-time crime center? Is that correct? And if so, who all voted in favor of it?
Mr. Jeffrey, you're out of order at this point.
Okay, I'm out of order, but this community needs answers and solutions. And even though we were in opposition, do you understand what the people of the community are telling you? I know I'm out of order. You're out of order for voting against what the people need. I didn't hear one person get up here and say that they were in favor of the tax. Or in favor of this money being sent to the real-time crime center. No one got up here and proved it. Everyone up here asked you to separate the line items, but you refused. You didn't listen. I came to you, Virgil. I asked you prior, separate the line item. I asked you, Vice Mayor Webb, have courage, separate the line item. I went to my own city director, Andrea, and asked her, separate the line item. All we were asking for you was to give us a chance. And then when we come other ways, it's a problem. But we're here trying to do things, the right things. We mobilized our community. Community came out. The people were present. And the people said no. So what kind of democracy is going on here to where our voices don't matter? And how are we supposed to trust you? People that say they come from south of 630, people that say they from the hood, and these bills and these things are infringing upon community. It affects us the most, people that look like me and you. We're the most marginalized communities. And for you all to, you all are gonna do what you want. And even though you heard it wasn't in the best interest of the community. So how can we tell people voting matters, democracy matters, this city board cares about the opinions of the people? When you heard you heard what we said tonight and you refused and turned away anyway.
Shameful, disgusting.
When will you all be accountable for what you're doing to communities? Antoine, we had a meeting with you. We never got answers back. Let's be transparent. You never got back to us about stuff. And Lance Hines is paid for the FOP. He's pushing these police bills, Lance Hines, and every time I come up here, you give me dirty looks, you storm out of meetings, you're paid, you're elected. You don't have the right to storm out of meetings and not hear citizens. Just like my city board of director, my opinions matter. And even if we don't agree, it's her job as a city director to respond to those concerns with correct information. I feel like I was given the runaround several times. And if you wouldn't have listened, we wouldn't have been up here. I wouldn't be up here. So I'm out of order. How am I out of order? You all ignored the people. You all are out of order. And this community will continue to remember these days and remember these names. And even though we recommended some of you, like Antoine Phillips, I almost think we would have been better taking our chances with Jordan Thomas, regardless. And it's time for all of us to start running for these positions. I don't care if 5, 10 people run for the mayor and we got to split the vote down so bad that somebody narrowly wins. But it's time, because here we are. Here we are. And here's the person that was speaking. She hasn't said anything to me. It's her time. And you all have time. You all have time. And we came to you prior.
Could you please let her have it?
Could you?
I appreciate this.
Can you explain to the, can we
Wright,
have a roll call of who voted in favor?
Don, I've already shared you out of order. You
Can we have a roll call?
So I understand, Ms. Wright, you don't want to speak.
Can we
If
have a
that's the
roll
case,
call?
If you don't want to speak, we're gonna
Here,
motion to
I'll go
adjourn,
ahead and
Ms. Wright.
yield my time since this is a citizen,
It's her time.
it's a
not yours.
citizen, yeah,
Ms. Wright.
it's our time. It's the
Wright.
people's time.
Ms. Wright, are you going to speak? If not, we're going to motion to adjourn.
I would like to speak. You know, it's very intimidating coming up here. It's my first time speaking. I've been to a few board meetings before. I've watched online, and a lot of people, half the city of Little Rock isn't voting. And a lot of people don't come here and didn't even really know about this until a year ago because we are not represented. We are so undervalued that we know you guys will not listen. So why even show up? Why vote? It just amazes me the lack of accountability you all have, the lack of accountability y'all hold police officers. I mean, the city voted against the increase of taxes because of the cops. The sole reason being the cops. I had an hour-long discussion, or over an hour-long discussion, with the fire department chief because I have family members who are firefighters, and they actually need the money. Housing needs money. Infrastructure needs money. Yet y'all continuously ignore these groups and these underfunded infrastructures to send money to police that already have the majority of the budget. I just want to ask you guys, what does it take for y'all to listen to us? What will it take? Do we have to protest outside your house, outside the building? Do we have to just get y'all out of office? Because clearly, you guys do not care and do not give any F's about the people and what we want and what we're advocating for. $1 million for cameras. That's disgusting, disgraceful, an abuse of power. And I agree with Ms. Dawn and everything she said. If we have to split the vote and on the ballot so many times, have so many people running just to get all of you unelected because you guys refuse to listen to the people, then so be it. Shame on every one of you, and especially shame on Lance, who just had his head in his laptop the whole time, not listening to people. It's very obvious. This board doesn't care. You're failing at your jobs. You're failing the city. You're failing the city.
Members of the board, any questions? Is there a motion to adjourn? There's a motion second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.